If you paid attention to VCT champs, you might have seen quite a few rounds happen like this one here, round number 21 between Optic and DRX, map number 5 of the lower final to go to the grand final. Very close game, as you can see. Optic are on the attack side here, and they are going to come to this A site, as you can see, and DRX are actually going to manage to win this round. But something pretty weird and unusual happens. Not just the fact that it's kind of a crazy, wacky round, you know, where people are running out of bullets, everyone's blind, Stacks is going to have like the ugliest gunfight of all time right there. No, what's going to happen in this round is Victor is going to manage to get a 4K. Now, technically one was with the Classic, but he's managed to get 3 kills with the Stinger. And that was a big theme of champions in general. We had a bit of a Stinger renaissance. And in fact, if we come back and take a look at Optic's buy in this round as well, you can see here on this left-hand side that both Crashies, Victor, and Marved have all gone with a Stinger and light shields. And there was quite a few teams at VCT Champs that were using buys like this quite often, and oftentimes as well found some success. And this is backed up with the stats as well, because here we have some, not all of the guns in Valorant, but just good enough to give us a kind of general overview for what we'll be talking about in this video, of course, which is the Stinger. So obviously we've got the guns down the left, you've got their Masters Copenhagen usage, so this is a tournament from a couple months ago. Then you've got their Champions usage, a tournament that just happened, and then at the very end one, we've got KPP, which is kills per pick percentage as well. So you can see in the Champs usage, what I've done is I put in brackets the difference from the Copenhagen usage. So you can see, for instance, like the Vandal, right, went slightly up, the Phantom went ever so slightly down, but guns like the Spectre and Sheriff took quite a bit of a big dive overall, and you can see that the Stinger in particular took a massive leap up overall in terms of increasing its percentage of pick rates. Now 2.26% overall isn't a ton, right? It's not like it's getting picked all of the time, but considering where it was at 0.43, that is a very big increase indeed. But one thing might really surprise you about that overall, because in particular when we take a look at the guns that are in a similar sort of range to the Stinger, right? Guns like the Bucky, guns like the Marshall, guns like the Sheriff, they're in that similar sort of price range. The Stinger actually has the worst kills per pick overall of any of those guns. So are pros just actually wrong? Should we not be picking the Stinger because it doesn't seem as successful as guns particularly like the Sheriff and Marshall, which are kind of its main competitors? Well, the crucial point is you have to keep in mind when those guns are bought and when some of those kills might come about. For instance, let's take a look at this game between Loud and Optic here. We're in round number 14, so that's the second round of the half, and Ye has bought a Marshall. And of course, a Marshall in the second round, often against just Classics or Ghosts or Sheriffs in this instance for Loud, you know, with no shields means that a Marshall one hit to the body will get you a ton of kills, like it does for Ye in this round, as you're about to see. As Loud start to come for this little B push here through mid, Ye's going to come around the corner and just absolutely decimate them straight away with his Marshall. There goes 1, there goes 2, there goes 3. And so you have to keep in mind that quite a few of the Marshall kills will be rounds just like this one, where, you know, it's just a one shot to the body, nice and easy, and you can get some free Marshall kills. It's a very powerful gun on those second rounds. And obviously the same can be said somewhat for the Sheriff as well, because a Sheriff can obviously be bought on a pistol round, and is quite often bought on a pistol round. And particularly on a map like Breeze, a Sheriff can often be the best gun in that round, as Aspas takes off FNS's head there, gets another kill right there, and he starts going nuts with a Sheriff, but he in essence has the best gun for that round, right? And so you have to again keep in mind that when we're talking about the Sheriff, there will be some rounds like this where it is the best gun. Or for instance, it could have been picked up in a second round, right? Left over for that second round, and again, be going against Classics with no shields. But that is in complete contrast to a Stinger, because a Stinger is normally in buys like this one in this round here, round number 7 of Xset versus Xerxia, where you can see that Xset have a couple Stingers here with no shields against full rifle buys of Xerxia here, who have, you know, full rifles and shields. Susie Boys has actually lost his shields, but even so, that's what the Stinger is normally going up against, because in those second rounds, you can normally buy a Spectre, so you might as well buy the better version of the gun if you can, right? And so normally a Stinger is only used in 2 scenarios. It's the ones like this where you're just on a save and, you know, you're just going up against full rifles, or it's when you force in the second round after losing the round, but you want to buy up. And again, in that scenario, again, the Stinger will normally be the weaker of the 2 weapons going up against Spectres most of the time. But still, a lot of the time, as we saw in the Victor clip, stuff like this will happen, like what BCJ is about to do, because he just starts melting people. And as I say, this is a very common occurrence, right? Where BCJ's heroics there end up winning them this round because he's able to get a 2k with a gun that costs 950 credits. So in these kind of rounds, these save rounds, we got another example here of Optic versus Loud. This is actually in the grand final. Why do pros go for a Stinger rather than a Marshal or a Sheriff in this round? And to be fair, sometimes they do go for a Sheriff. But essentially, I think it comes down to basically not playing fair, right? If you're going to have a Marshal or a Sheriff versus a Vandal or an Op or whatever it might be, you're just going to have to hit a really good shot, essentially, right? Whereas with a Stinger, that is not what you are trying to do. With a Stinger, you are trying to just run around and create chaos. And the crucial thing is, really in these rounds, oftentimes you might only need one kill. You just need that first kill, right? Because then when you get that first kill, you can then pick up a gun. And once you pick up that gun, you know, now you're in perhaps a 5v4 and you're feeling pretty good about things. So with a Stinger, and we are going to see Victor get a full 4k Stinger here, you know, the fact that it has a small mag and stuff like that, that doesn't matter in these rounds, right? Because you're always, most of the time, going to aim to pick up the gun once you get that kill anyway. And the Stinger is fighting a different fight than a Marshal or a Sheriff is, right? With a Marshal or a Sheriff, you're going to stand still and you're just going to say, I hope I hit a really good shot. Whereas with the Stinger, you're going to be moving around, you're going to be going crazy, you're going to be a hard target to hit, and you'll see it here, right? He manages to get one kill, he just starts jumping around, right? That's what a Stinger is. You're just going to create chaos, and that is the main reason that I think you are seeing pros go for a Stinger over a Marshal or a Sheriff in these rounds. And of course, Champs wasn't even played on the most current patch because the Stinger somehow got buffed. It somehow got even better than it was before, and I think that this was honestly maybe a bit of a mistake by the devs because it's pretty clear that the best players in the game believe that the Stinger is a very viable weapon, particularly on those save rounds when you're up against rifles. They seem to trust that gun to be able to potentially get them that kill more than they do for other guns in a similar price range. So now that the Stinger is even better than it was before, we really are entering into a bit of a Stinger meta, I think, again, where you should probably be picking the Stinger pretty often because this is the best players in the world we're talking about. We're talking about the players that can hit the heads most often, so you would think that they would naturally just want to go for a Sheriff because they're the best players in the world. But instead, they'd rather go for the gun where you can just run around and go crazy and it's going all over the place because they think it actually has a decent chance of actually winning that fight. And some teams were pretty much reliably going for the Stinger on those type of rounds. And so to conclude, the Stinger, it turns out, is pretty good, and was pretty good even before it got buffed in this patch, and if pros believe that the Stinger is a gun worth using for them, the best aimers in the world, then it's probably good enough for your aim as well, and you probably should be picking it in your games more often.